Hello, beautiful visionaries. This is Lorna Liana, and welcome to the Modern Shaman Mystery School, where we are going to explore how we can apply ancient shamanic wisdom to our complex modern lives, shapeshift into the highest version of ourselves, and become the visionary leaders the world so urgently needs during this time of crisis. In this week-long introduction to the world of visionary shamanism, we will explore sacred plant medicines like ayahuasca, iboga, wachuma, and cannabis. We'll also dive into different aspects of indigenous culture. We will discover how to work with dreams and expanded states of consciousness, and we'll also explore the intriguing world of mediumship and working with spirit guides. So today I am so excited to bring to you Guillaume Gauthier, aka Shawinigan Ungaya. Now, Guillaume is a shamanic practitioner and medicine carrier who is dedicated to self-transformational work. He supports individuals to facilitate their own healing and rediscover their own power. During the last 10 years and during his transformational journeys around the world, Guillaume has had rare opportunities to study and meditate with master healers and teachers of all faiths, as well as to train in shamanism, plant medicine, Reiki, and sound healing. He will share with us how plant medicine can help us heal trauma and remember our soul purpose. Thank you so much for joining us today, Guillaume.
Thank you, Rana. Good being with you today.
So I'm really curious about your journey, and as I recall in reading your bio in your website, I believe you embarked on an entrepreneurial path first, and then during which you were introduced to the world of ayahuasca shamanism. Is that correct?
Yes, I was in the corporate sector for over 20 years as an entrepreneur and as a CEO of big companies. And at some point, I was experiencing some difficulty on my path, my personal life, and I was introduced to ayahuasca, and that kind of started my shamanic path.
Wow, that is so fascinating. So one of my personal passions that I have been exploring with great interest over the years. So I started working with ayahuasca in 2004. And since then, I've noticed more and more interest in ayahuasca, especially from people who are not trying to heal some kind of disease or PTSD or psychological trauma. People who are actually healthy, high-functioning individuals and a lot of entrepreneurs. So I'm curious to know, given that you have had a extensive history with the world of corporate business and entrepreneurship, I'm wondering from your perspective now as a shamanic healer, what was your major transformational moment that caused you to kind of let go of that aspect of your life, and what it is you think that the corporate world can learn from these sacred plant medicine traditions?
Well, I think, it's a great question. I think the main thing is that, we might be successful, but we might not be fully happy. We might have a great career and have a big company or be a CEO, which, it was, my path where I was, but also feel that it's not exactly why we're here for. Maybe there is something else. So I think it's more the idea of purpose that kind of started to, grow in the background of my heart and my mind more than the idea of pure success. And, we might all think, well, I'm successful, I have a good job, I have a family, I have a big company, I'm running a big business and things like that. But I've been, meeting so many entrepreneurs and CEO over the last 10 years that say, well, that's not it. I feel there is something else. I feel something else is calling me. I feel I'm not here just to build a big business. I feel there's another reason I'm here on this planet. Also, I think another thing that keeps coming a lot to me through the people I'm meeting and through my own path, it's the idea of service. How do we really serve others? How do we serve the world, the planet? You mentioned in your introduction that we are going through a big time of crisis. I think it's very self-evident, either through environment or social justice or inequality. And I think a lot of us, especially people that are, the chance to be empowered in positions of power, are realizing, okay, is what am I doing every day when I wake up? Is this really serving to get this planet, get this community, get this humanity into a better place? And my personal answer was no. It was like I was successful, I built many businesses, I literally, was considered by many as successful, but I could not look at myself in the mirror and consider that success because I don't think it translated into a higher sense of fulfillment and purpose.
Okay, I love how you expressed that the importance to connect with purpose that I think a lot of people feel deep down inside, whether or not you acknowledge it and decide to make it your goal to discover what that is during your lifetime. A lot of people don't, but I think for many of us there is that feeling that we came here for something bigger than ourselves. And I want to also just highlight something that I've witnessed in my own experience growing up in an entrepreneurial family, with the friends of my parents all being business owners, entrepreneurs, working for corporate, big corporations, being expats stationed elsewhere, primarily in China. And one of the things that I noticed, and I find it rather tragic, is that in this particular generation of people too, there's an inability to really know what happiness is in many cases. I think a lot more people out in the planet are not even fully aware of what it means to be happy, what it means to be fulfilled. And so because they've achieved the trappings of success, they tell themselves that they are happy, they've had a successful life, but you can see by the words that they use and the actions that they make that they're not happy people. So I would love to ask you to take yourself back to the moments when you looked in the mirror, when you had this successful life as a business CEO, and when you recognized that ultimately everything that you had was not nourishing you in a deep way. Can you share with us what that felt like for you, so that any of the people who are listening to this conversation, if there's some type of feeling of things not being fully the way you want them to be, so emotionally and energetically what that feels like. So what was that like for you?
Well, for me, that moment, it's a very precise moment. It was, I was around 35 and I was running, my own internet company in New York City. I had 200 employees at the time. I started that company 3 years before with my business partner, so just the two of us. So we grew, very quickly to 200 people. We raised over $50 million for the business. So a lot of what success looked like, or the definition I had. It's like, okay, I'm successful, I did it, I made it. And we were selected that year to become the Entrepreneur of the Year, so to receive the Entrepreneur of the Year award, which is, a big deal in the entrepreneur community in the US.
For Forbes?
Yes, Forbes? For Forbes.
Oh my God, wow, high five.
So here I am in Times Square, in this big room with thousands of people sitting at their tables and looking at the stage, and me coming on stage, for the announcements of the award. And as I came on stage, something shattered inside of me. Something broke. I could see the difference between, the outer success and inner success. That was the key moments for me. I say there is this image of success that I made it because of my company, the money I raised, the size of it, who we became, all the interviews we were doing on TV and radio at the time, and the inner feeling I'm experiencing. And, at the time, my social life, was a little bit crazy. I was going out a lot. I was dealing with addictions. My relationship was very complicated and not doing very well. I had a very hard time to sleep. I had anxiety. I had some problem with anger. Clearly, a lot of things in my inner world were not reflecting the outer world. And when I came on stage, I literally felt like I was wearing a mask, like I was lying. And I was looking at all those eyes, looking at myself, looking at me on stage. They all wanted to be me. They all wanted to be on stage next year. They all wanted to get that award. And the things that came through my heart and that message from spirit, that I could look at now was like, you don't want to be me. You don't want to be really in my body right now, because in my body, it's not really happy. It's not really joy. It's not really contentment. It's not really fulfillment. It's all the other, painful things I was experiencing. And so I left, after that, I just collapsed outside of the stage. When I just get out, I say 3 words, I just get out, I got on the side of the stage and I just collapsed. And 4 months later, I left the country and I left everything, my relationship, my life, I sold everything. And I left with one backpack and I went on my spiritual trip for many years, and I ended up on that quest, on that hero's journey that, we are all familiar maybe with, Campbell, described it very well, but I was really diving into my hero's journey, going to find myself. I'm going to see what is the real purpose of me and this life, what is this meaning. And the most striking is when I came back into that journey is that I realized that most of my fellow entrepreneurs, most of the successful people I knew experienced that. They were maybe successful on the outside, smiling during cocktails, smiling at, business presentation. But when you really sat with them and go a little bit deeper, you realize there was a lot of unresolved trauma. Things from their childhood, things that they maybe didn't like themselves fully, things they were trying to hide that come out through anger or pain or depression or some other symptoms, very often addictions, to alcohol or drugs or things we do to escape and to numb ourselves. And so I remember also reading an article at the time, I think it was in Forbes, by the way, saying that 30% of the entrepreneurs, are depressed. 30%.
I read that article. Yeah, I read that article. I think it's called The Psychological Cost of Entrepreneurship.
Is that the one? That's the article. Exactly. And, and at the time also when I was there, one of my dear friends was running a startup in New York, committed suicide. And he was successful, he had raised money, he had a big company, and one day he just killed himself. And so to me it became really obvious that there is an underlying suffering in that successful community of entrepreneurs, or in the community of executives and CEOs, because of the pressure, because of the risk, because of the unknowingness of tomorrow, because of all that things that they need to hide permanently, because you need to come into the office with a smile to your employees, to your shareholders, to your business partners. And there was no space for emotional well-being. Not even talking about spirituality, but just pure emotional well-being, looking at the people, who are you? Where are you coming from? What are you feeling today? It's often not seen as something that should be talked about, It's a very masculine world where you need to be strong all the time, and I think it's just not human, and it's not the reality. And deeper than that, I think, beyond the emotional well-being, there's a big question about purpose, which to me always was in the back of my mind for many, many years before that crisis happened on that stage. And I had no idea. I went, to business school. I studied business. I built many businesses. But I never really had a discussion on life purpose. It sounds a little bit, it's all the spiritual people, do that work, and, like the meaning of life is like, is it really important? And people separate their job and their life, their work life and their home life. They feel, well, I just need to work, I need to pay my bills. But I think it's why the society is such despair right now, because we are not really bringing this question of purpose, of service, of inner fulfillment into every actions we take, either it's being with our wife, with our friends, or at work. And I think that's a key question that really lead me into that path.
Okay, so before I dive into some of the work that you do as a shamanic healer, I just also want to take people fast forward, into from that point where you collapsed off stage to the highest point of your experience having gone through this hero's journey, when you realized that you had found the keys to like deep happiness, joy, and purpose. Can you explain to us how that felt for you?
Well, it's one of the things that's so hard to put into words in many ways because it's such an inner state that experience with profound joy, I would say, and self-love that is giving, a kind of a detachment, I would say, almost about whatever is happening in your life. You're just content. You're just happy wherever you are. Things are just okay. You're smiling at life. You feel that you know where you are and you know why you are here. And also, to me, it's very linked to the sense of service. It's seeing, around me just because we had a discussion, that because maybe we had a session together, or just because we just had a friendly chat, and seeing, wow, I know exactly why I'm here. I know exactly why God or why Spirit put me here to serve. And I think it translates into a life that looks very different. The way we live our life, do we sleep very well? Do we wake up with a smile? Do we feel gratitude, literally every minute of our life? Can we see the beauty in the world around us, in the broken world around us? Can we still feel, joy? How can we love that broken world? Can we just experience that? Are we still experiencing anger and detachment and frustrations? So the compass is very clear to me. It's that inner state of well-being. And, it's been many years now that, I experienced that. It doesn't mean there's no moments, where I don't go back in my old things, but they don't hold me there. They don't go for a long time. It doesn't mean we're immune from pain. We're not immune from pain at all. The plant medicine path or the shamanic path is a path with also pain. But because there is that direction, because there is that inner growing of that sense of fulfillment and joy, you can go through your hero's journey again with more strength, more power, more surrender probably also. I think one of the big words we learn in that path is surrendering and trusting. So we become that vessel, we're not doing as much. We're just letting things flow. And there is a sense of really support from something greater that is happening whenever we ask for it, whenever we tap into it. And for me, who was not born in a religious family or with any spirituality, that was a massive discovery, And I have a scientific mind. I was trained as a veterinarian. I have a PhD in veterinary medicine. I'm a very square, scientific guy originally. And then those things that I could not put in boxes or I could not explain started to happen and guide me. And I just had to kind of surrender and say, wow, there's something else. And that was so beautiful. I think that connection to the divine ultimately is what really fills my life, and feels really great.
Thank you so much for sharing that. For me, I feel like there's kind of like this lightness of being. This feeling of uplifted joy and curiosity, and it's so much easier to connect with other people and truly be present and witnessing somebody else and having a smile for them and engaging in their energy. Whereas I feel like when a person is not truly happy, then the people around just kind of become auxiliary to what they're trying to get done, or they're just like in the way, or what. So that it becomes easier to connect with the world around you and with other people. So I want to ask you now about this whole transition to becoming a shamanic healer. How did you make that decision? And if you could also share with us too the difference between being a healer of another type of modality and being a shamanic healer.
Well, it's a good question. I don't think I ever made the decision. That's really the way. The way it happened to me, I feel there is first a pull into it. Something is pulling you. There's a calling. There's something, when I left corporate, I had no idea I would be doing that. If you tell me 10 years ago that I would be here, in Peru right now and talking to you about the subject, I would have think, you're probably, not very well right now. So there is a pull. Something is calling, and very often the calling is not very identified. It's not very known. We just know that where we are is not where we should be, but there is something else. And so we go on that quest. So to me, that's how the shamanic path started. I just feel called to start some experiences, to work with plant medicine, to study with some teachers, American natives or, natives here in Peru or Brazil, and starting exploring different things. So there was a pull into it. And then I think at some point, I do remember clearly one ceremony many years ago, where it shifted from that pull into a push. I felt like spirit was not just calling me slowly. I feel like they were like behind me and pushing me into it, that I had no choice anymore. And it came around the time of my shamanic initiation, which I didn't really call for. I didn't ask for it. I didn't know it was going to happen that day. And I went through these profound, initiations, where clearly, the best way I can describe is that spirit was just sitting around me and said, listen, this is what's possible. This is what you can do. This is what you're here for. Do you want to do that? Or do you want to stay in the life you're doing right now? And I was, a meditation teacher. I was also already doing some spirit work. And they showed me a glimpse of what it would look like. Very quickly, but very, very deep in my body, I would say. It was very emotional. It was very felt in terms of what it would feel like. And I remember extreme joy and excitement, and also being very daunting and lonely and difficult. Like I experienced those two feelings at the same time. It was not going to be easy. It was going to be going through a lot of shadings and dying and rebirth and letting go. And at the same time, if I do that, if I trust spirit 100%, they will serve me and they will be here for me. And so that led me into the shamanic path, which for me as a shamanic healer is that connection to all the spirits, all the grandfathers and the grandmothers, so the mountains and the rivers and the sky and the trees and the plants and the rocks, and we call them grandmothers and grandfathers, because they've been here way, way before us. Those mountains around me here in Peru have been here for millions of years, and they do have a spirit. They are alive. They have wisdom, and they have a much better wisdom than mine, because they've just been here for much longer. They've seen much more. And to me, as a shamanic healer, is how do I deepen authentically my connection with those grandfathers and grandmothers, with those spirits, to be able to guide my own healing and supporting other people in discovering their own medicine, their own power, guiding them into recognizing that I don't have special power, but they can also hear that spirit, that they can also feel it. Maybe they can hear it. Maybe they can see it, but they can, feel it in their heart in different ways. So it's guiding people into that and using that, either it's in, sessions or ceremonies or teachings, so people can say, wow, I never had that experience and I just felt this. So I just experienced that. And because that thing is coming from such a high wisdom, such an ancient energy, and we can call it God, we can call it the universe, we can call it spirit, it always brings light into our life. It always gets us more into our path. It always gets us more aligned with why we're here. That's been my experience, that's really what I feel very called, to do that. But to me, shamanism, is not limited to that. I like crossing boundaries, and I work with people with Jewish faith and, Christian faith and Buddhist, because I think, we're also here to bridge all the traditions and not say, well, I'm a shamanic healer and I'm not this and I'm not that. at the end of the day, it's a universal truth that we all share. And I like the idea of also looking in other traditions and see what they have to say and see how it can feel also my work and my practice.
So, how does the shamanic healing differ from other forms of healing then? How would you
Well,
know that, how would you be able to know that I'm receiving shamanic healing now versus, this other kind of healing, energy healing?
Well, because you work with the specific spirits, you're going to work with spirits of animals, spirits of plants, spirits of
Okay.
trees, spirit of mountains, spirits of, the direction, the east and west, north and south, spirit of the earth and the spirit of above. So you're working with, I would say, specific spirits in some ways, your power animal, your spirit animals that are going to help you, to guide you, to teach you, and to heal you. So I'm also a Reiki healer. With Reiki, you work more with the Reiki energy, which we could call a spirit, in many ways. The Reiki symbols to me are like little spirits, powerful spirit that have their own power. But it doesn't go into that tradition of connection, I would say, to nature, to Mother Earth, which is shamanism is really embedded into that.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. So we had spoken about purpose a number of times, and I'm curious to know from your perspective, what gets in the way of people discovering their purpose? And I will preface this by saying many of us feel this inclination, and I speak to many, many entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs about trying to, they want to figure out what their purpose is. So they know that there's something there, but they're unable to discover exactly what it is and what they're meant to do. So how do you work with people on uncovering that so that they can move forward in a very clear way? And what gets in the way of them really getting clear as to what that purpose actually is?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question. I think it's one of the key questions on looking for our path and our purpose, is that very often we are attached to stories. The stories we tell ourselves, the stories we learn from our parents, our educations, our communities. And, in shamanism, we have specific prayer to pray for clarity, to asking spirit to see clearly things as they are, not as how I see it. So we are living with those glasses that are tinted. So we don't see the world. We don't see reality. We don't even see ourselves properly. And so all of that basically bring fears. So we are in that stage basically where we're afraid. So we'd rather stay where we are right now, entangled in our smaller world, but that we know very well, instead of maybe breaking through the stories, breaking through those fears to discover something that's much bigger, but that feels scary because we don't know it. Deeply as humans, we have a back brain, our animal brain, that's wired for safety. We're wired to stay in the cave. We're wired to not venture too far because it's dangerous. It's a very old program. It's a very old hardware. It's not even a software. It's almost like a hardware in our body that keep us safe. And that's why we thrive, as a species on the planet. In some ways we thrive. And so once we understand that, when we understand, what's really running the show, that we are not really in control. We think we are, even the top CEOs, they think they are, but in fact they're run completely by those stories, by this programming, and they have very hard time to break through it. So through, shamanic healing and other methods that we can use, we can break through that. And very often it's through experiencing something different into our bodies, into our hearts, where that deep sense of knowing is arising, something different, and something that becomes stronger and louder to the point that where we are taking actions. We are changing the past. We are taking a different change. We are leaving the toxic relationship. We are leaving the wrong job. We are leaving maybe the wrong place we are living. But, there's a lot of resistance. So resistance is another aspect of the work, is to look at, where are the resistance and why are we so attached to them. Very often it's embedded into early traumas or early stories that we live in our childhood that kind of told us, well, this is who you are. This is what you need to be. This is what you can do and this is what you can't do. This is your power and this is where you have no power. And I don't, believe in that because, I've experienced it for myself. I think there's a way to break those beliefs. but it clearly can take a little bit of time, and some deep work sometime to go through that.
Got it. Okay, so we're coming up to the end of our session. I just, want to ask you a couple more questions. So, when it comes to, working with people to break through these limitations, is there a particular method that you use that you found to be particularly helpful or, powerful in helping people shift?
Yes, I do. I mean, I use a mix of different shamanic techniques, that use, drummings and soul work and breath work, and journaling and, prayers. So it's a mix of different things that I bring together, kind of over the years, it has evolved. And I would say, most of the tools I'm using have been just taught by spirit. I didn't really learn them from my teachers. They kind of coming through during the sessions. And very often what you need to hear compared to the person before you needs to hear is very different, and spirits would just say, well, this is what's going on here. This is what this person is dealing with. So I've kind of always trusting, spirits to guide me into it, which can be a little bit daunting sometimes, but in fact gives a better results,
But
so.
there's a method that I believe I saw on your website called somatic tantric shamanic healing, which is very intriguing because it just seems to put three different distinct modalities into one. So what is that, and how can it? What kind of results does it get for your clients?
So to me, so that methods came through channeling and through, different methods I learned. To me, it's very close to a plant medicine experience. So it's just 1 hour sessions, but with a very physical and body experience where people are going through some breath work and we do spirit work at the same time. So that's why it's called somatic, because it's very embedded in the body, and the body has all our memories, all our traumas, all our stories, kind of hold our soul too. So that's where the business of healing is happening. Tantric, because I work a lot with tantric energy, which is, our root chakras and second chakras energy, which are very powerful. So what we call sexual energies, but it's more through the breath and how do we move this energy because they are very powerful. Also fear and trauma are very often held in this lower part of our bodies. So when we tap into this energy, we can move those fears, we can break through those traumas. And, shamanic, because we're using spirit. We're using the work of different helpers that are around the table with us and are coming into the world. And people will get into very deep, physical, emotional, and spiritual transformation, even sometime in the course of just 45 minutes, and get messages and get visions. And to me, that's been kind of the culmination of putting all the things I've learned and those things I've been guided to into this one way of doing the transformation. So somatic tantric shamanic healing is kind of the best way I've tried to explain it. It's also the way Spirit told me that's how you need to call it. So that's why I'm calling it that way, for lack of a better word, To me, it's a shamanic work, but it's just bringing a little bit more of the somatic and tantric energy, which is to me one of the most powerful ways to unlock traumas and transformation into people's life.
Got it. Okay, so thank you so much for sharing your story and your incredible journey to becoming a shamanic healer from best entrepreneur of Forbes. What is the free gift that you have for our audience?
So the free gift is a morning practice. It's a daily morning practice that I've created over the years with my clients, which I usually only, share with my clients and people I do work with. And it's a 5-step practice that you do as soon as you wake up. That takes between 10 to 20 minutes. And that can bring, the transformation we talked about. I think that, methods to me have proven to bring so much transformation, and sometimes it's just what's needed. So it's a really great ebook. It's a beautiful tool. It's very well explained and all the different steps, and very easy to put in place, but also very deep, very quickly. Like usually if you do it just once, one morning, you will feel your day is already very different. But it's, it's meant to be used every day, every morning as you wake up to really power your day and tap into all what we talked about, that purpose, that sense of fulfillment, that joy. So that, I'm very excited to share it with the audience and to give it here.
Thank you so much. And how can people best stay in touch with you?
Well, they can go on my website. It's called thesanctuaryheal.com, thesanctuaryheal.com, and they can find all my contact there, or they can also find me, on Instagram at the Sanctuary NY. So the Sanctuary NY.
All right.
On Instagram.
Thank you so much. We'll be sure to put all the links down below this video, free gift, and Guillaume's website. Okay, I want to wish you a beautiful rest of your day in Pisac. Guillaume, thank you so much, and I hope to meet you in person one day.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lorna. Much love from Peru and from the Sacred Valley to all of you.
All right, bye-bye.